If you've been following me for some time, or if you read the introduction to either of my last two books, you know that I got plunged into this ministry lane of spiritual warfare years ago when I discovered that at one of my previous churches, one of the leaders was actually practicing witchcraft at a high level, causing havoc in the church and strategically targeting each of the leaders, including myself. Now, one of the troubling things that I learned in the crash course on spiritual warfare that God sent me on at that point was that individuals who deliberately serve the enemy secretly meet every month, particularly on full moon nights and high days like Halloween, Easter, winter solstice, lunar eclipses, to engage in rituals to come into agreement with the enemy. I marked a calendar for those days so I could pray strategically. And one of the early confirmations of what was going on in my church behind the scenes with this individual was that they mysteriously were absent each and every one of those days. I was actually Facebook friends with this person, and they would post that map showing they were out of town every single one of those days. So this was not random. It was strategic, it was organized, and I realized that if we as God's soldiers are going to thrive the way He has called us to thrive in offensive spiritual warfare, we also have to be strategic and organized on the battlefield. This is day 12 of 31 days sharing nuggets from my new devotional, Bending Bows of Bronze, Subdue the Enemy Under Your Feet. And today we're going to be talking about the enemy weapon that I call illicit formation, which is the action of coming into agreement with the enemy, with demonic entities even, for personal gain, for money, influence, power, or otherwise, or to appease a fear of loss, such as protection for children or loved ones, or insurance to preserve financial or social status. Sometimes it's deliberate collaboration with evil, like in covens or in high-level secret societies. Sometimes it's disguised as something wholesome, but anything that covenants with a power from or loyalty to anything other than God falls into this category. Because as we highlight all throughout this book and this experience, Satan's kingdom is based on transactionality. You can't serve him any old mamby-pamby way, half-stepping the way that we do when we serve God, unfortunately. You can't just show up when you want to show up. If you're going to dabble in darkness and get something in return, there's dues to be paid. There's contracts, there's sacrifices, there's covenants, there's agreements that if they are not followed, there are consequences and repercussions. Things like grace and mercy do not exist like they do in God's kingdom. Ephesians 5:11-12 says, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. So what we're doing is exposing. Listen, if you're doing God's work in any capacity and encountering heavy resistance in your life, it's very possible that there is illicit formation working against you. People who have come into collaboration with the enemy against you to keep you overwhelmed, burned out, frustrated, sick, broke, anything to compromise you so that you aren't effective in your God-given assignments. How do we combat it? Illicit formation is just a counterfeit of God's weapon of virtuous preparation, which we actually talk about in the previous devotional, Armed with Strength for Battle. And this is actually one of the marching orders from day 12 that I will leave with you today. So virtuous preparation for you means engaging in strategic prayer. I encourage you to fast, to cover, to enter into divine communion individually, but especially in community, asking God to show you how to pray, to show you what to pray against, to reveal to you accursed objects, gifts in your home, maybe innocent rituals or cultural practices that you're engaging in that are giving the enemy and his people access to you. Now, if you feel like you're the target of illicit formation, I encourage you, just drop "no weapon will prosper" in the comments, and let's both encourage each other and remind the enemy that he's fighting a battle he's already lost, and he's throwing a tantrum because he knows his time is short. Listen, it's time for us to take the fight to the enemy. If you have not yet grabbed your paperback or audiobook version of this 31-day experience, go to bendingbowsofbronze.com. You can get the first 3 days for free, and let's start eliminating spiritual strongholds and taking the fight to the enemy today. Tomorrow, we'll dive even deeper into this and talk about infiltration, shadow agendas, and using godly discernment to expose what's hidden in plain sight for His glory. See you then.